Well, if any more proof were needed that Brexit marked a case of back to the future when it comes to the UK and its politics and its direction of travel as a society, that was given by Sir Keir Starmer with his latest intervention, repulsive, repellent, disgraceful intervention in front of the CBI conference just recently. We must wean ourselves off immigration, cheap labour. This is a kind of rhetoric that Irish migrants at the end of the 19th century, early 20th century would have been familiar with. Jewish migrants, a couple of decades later, would have been familiar with coming to the UK. The wave of West Indian migrants after the Second World War, Ugandan migrants in the 1970s. In sum, every succeeding wave of immigrants or migrants to the UK have felt this whip hand, this fist of fury, packaged in this oily, mealy mouthed language that politicians like Sir Keir Starmer are expert in. This has nothing to do with cheap labour. This is to do with playing to these Brexit heartlands, genuflecting at the altar of their xenophobia, racism, nativism, and British nationalism. Migrants have never ever reduced anybody's wage. That's the bosses that do that. And though there is a desire by bosses to force wages down in order to increase profit and shareholder dividends, Keir Starmer's right. But then here's a contradiction. He wants to end the low wage model that Britain has operated under for many decades, but he doesn't want to support striking workers such as RMT or Mick Lynch. He warns his front bench not to appear on picket lines. So he doesn't want workers to fight for themselves and to show solidarity with workers from other lands, as you would imagine a socialist would. He wants a patriarchal relationship with the working class. He will decide what's good for working people, not working people and the working classes themselves. Mick Lynch's recent analysis of refugees and the demonisation of refugees was superb. Although Mick Lynch has a black spot in my view because of his support for Brexit, which was based on political doctrine rather than reality, given the really existing forces driving Brexit, he was right to point out that refugees are just like human beings. They're not cheap labour. That is the most dehumanising language. This is the language of Untermensch that the Jews were faced with in the early 1930s by Hitler and his cronies. So Keir Starmer's no Hitler, but he's certainly no Nye Bevan either. He is a man, in the words of Nye Bevan, walking backwards with his face to the future, a reactionary. And Brexit is a reactionary, regressive political project. This man should be named Captain, not hindsight, but Captain Opportunism, for the way that he has gone from being the most passionate advocate of Remain in a second referendum on that question to being the most passionate champion of Brexit. Nothing to do with principle, everything to do with opportunism. Our NHS would not survive without the role of migrant workers, the bus drivers, the cleaners, these jobs that migrant workers do and have done for years. And he's just swept them away like so much dust off his kitchen table. That's where Britain has become. That's where Britain has gone, and that's where Britain is after 6 years, of this horrible, regressive, anti-human, anti-worker, nationalist project, otherwise known as Brexit. Stick your Brexit up your arse. Bring on IndyRev 2. Peace out.